Welcome to the Roller Coaster Ride of Parenting podcast. I'm Jenny.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Susanna. And we'll be your hosts as we discuss the highs and the lows of the parenting journey.
We'll be having conversations based on the content from Susanna's book, A Childcare Expert's Guide to Enjoying Your Parenting. Throughout her time as a childcare owner and operator, Susanna has encountered many overwhelmed parents, and she wrote this book to encourage and equip them to be the best parents they can be.
This podcast is an opportunity to share more tips and tricks around the challenges that parents face. It's our hope that through our shared knowledge, experiences, and conversations, we help you to better embrace your parenting and enjoy your roller coaster ride.
Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the importance of stepping out of your comfort zone. We'll be focusing on how pushing past fear and conquering challenges can empower us as parents and inspire our children to reach their full potential. As always, we'll be referring to Susanna's book and our personal experiences to guide our conversation. So, Jen, as a child, was there any times where you pushed your parents outside their comfort zone?
I pushed my parents outside their comfort zone.
With your cheeky personality, there must be something, mate. Come on.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Especially my mom.
Please share.
Okay, so my mom is one of the biggest introverts I know, which is very interesting. She really does not like big groups of people. Like she loves like one-on-one conversations. She'd be quite happy to stay at home all week and do it, like not see lots of people. And I feel like I drove her absolutely crazy by bringing home swarms of people for her to feed, like just the activity. I don't even think I realized I did it. Like she was always just following me around, like sweeping up after me, like just bringing order back to the chaos that I created. So I feel like I was like a bit of a tornado, and because our personalities were just so polar opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, and actually I think I did that when I moved to Australia to Jared's mom as well.
She's introverted as well.
Actually, she's not introverted, but her home is her space that's like her haven, and she's very intentional. Like with family dinners, she'll go and she'll buy the perfect portions of meat for how many people are coming, and she'll get the right cuts, and she's intentional with like the way she sets the table, and she wants you to feel really special. And I just remember like we lived in the little flat downstairs, like when we first got married and we were like really young and really poor, and like I would just always like invite people. Like there was college students from overseas that just didn't have family here, and I'd be like, oh, we've got family dinner, come on. And I always just had a couple of people. So probably 12 months after I moved to Australia, one night she called me and said, hey, is there anyone coming to dinner tonight? And I said, oh, I don't think so. I can find someone. And she's like, no, don't. Like, I just realized, I was like, oh. And we had the conversation. She's like, every time you bring extra people, I scramble. To get the right plates and the right. So then she just started prepping like extra food all the time for the Jenny people. So I think, but I didn't mean to push her out of her comfort zone, but I think it was just my manic gathering of people that was very unsettling for pretty much all of my family.
There you go.
Yeah.
You've got a gift of unsettling people, pushing them out of their comfort zone. That's cool, Jen. I think you still do that in lots of different ways for some people we know, but not quite like that. So as your favourite and most perfect child, I'm sure I never did anything like that, pushing you outside of your comfort zone. So how would you, like, what have you done? Because I didn't do anything that would push your buttons at all. So what did you choose to do to push yourself outside your comfort zone?
Oh, well, this is the thing. I think it's important for us to be outside of our comfort zone. I think it's where you grow the most. I think it's where you, where being extended really helps you, just develop as a person. So there's lots of things that I've done over the years to extend myself. I don't think I started doing it deliberately until probably I was in my middle to late 20s. But the latest thing I've done, and that's in my book as well, is climbing the mountain in Cape Town. And that was an extension of being taken out of my comfort zone, because it was, one, I'm not a lover of heights. And I wasn't sure if I could actually physically do the climb. I had to train for it and all that sort of thing before going. And the guide that was taking us said that because of my age, I think, it must have been about 3 years ago now, so I must have been
66?
About 66, I think. And she said, oh, well, because of your age, what I'll do is I'll try you out for the first 20 minutes, 25 or something like that, I think it was. And if I don't think you can make it for the rest of the way, I'll turn you around, you'll have to go back. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I found we were staying in Cape Town and staying at the base of the mountain, and that intimidated me.
Yeah, wow.
Because I could see how big it was, and nobody else, and we were away with a group, and nobody else in the group was going on the track, and they were all like, oh, are you serious? You're going to walk up there? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And I found that, and I don't intimidate very easily at all, but I found that waiting for those 3 days, having things like that said to me, and me looking at the man, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I have bitten off more than I could chew. But anyhow, the good news is I climbed the mountain, had the best time, and then I just had the fabulous sense of satisfaction. And I did. I grew a lot in doing that mountain. And now it's just one of those things you go, well, if I can do that, there's lots of other things I can do too that I don't feel comfortable with. But I've done things like because when I was so frightened of heights, climbing Sydney Harbour Bridge. That might seem like nothing to some people because you're strapped on and everything, and it's really impossible to hurt yourself. But when you're frightened of heights, that doesn't make any sense to you at all. Climbing that, and I can remember for days afterwards climbing the Harbour Bridge. I did it with your dad. I think I bought the tickets to go for your dad's 50th. And for days afterwards, my legs were so painful because I was so frightened. All my muscles in my legs were really tense, and I was holding them tight when I was going, particularly climbing down ladders or going up ladders on the bridge, because it was all part of it. But there's just such a sense of satisfaction when you push yourself outside your comfort zone. And it does. Then when you find yourself not intentionally in a position of being out of your comfort zone, which obviously those two things were, I chose to do those. But, we all know in life many times things will come up and you haven't intentionally put yourself out of your comfort zone. So when I'm in those positions where I find myself out of my comfort zone, not by choice, when I remember that I've done things like that, it helps me settle in that place of being out of my comfort zone. And I know that I'm going to grow from that. And I know the benefit, there will be benefit in it. So it helps me stay there long enough until I get the benefit.
So in your book, you talk about how, as a parent, choosing to push yourself outside your comfort zone you believe is really healthy for your kids as well. Can you explain that a little bit for us?
Well, again, I think if your children see that you're willing to put yourself outside your comfort zone, it helps them take risks. Let's face it, if in life you're always going to have risks, they'll either come up unexpectedly or you'll choose to go on the risk. And if we can show our children that risks don't stop us, obviously we also have to teach them by showing them that we're taking calculated risks. We're showing them how to choose wisely and not be foolish in their risks, and how to navigate risks, whether they're planned or not planned. And it just helps them see that, if mum or dad, even when I did that climb at Cape Town, I was excited about getting home to tell the grandchildren what grandma did. And I think I sent photos back on Instagram and things like that. And it helps me encourage them that, you know what, you will have obstacles in your life. There'll be time where you feel really uncomfortable, but you can overcome them. When you get through the other side, it's fabulous. Like I remember also when Maddie and Mealy, your two eldest, when you were living in the States for a few years, and we when we went, well, first of all, we encouraged you to go out of your comfort zone and go into the ice water when we were camping. And you came out of the water totally blue and then went bright red as the blood rushed to the surface. And then for Maddie, I think was about 7.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
Something like 7 or 8. And Mealy 2 years younger. And Maddie's like, I want to go in, Grandma. So it's like, okay. So I knew Maddie wouldn't be able to go in on her own. So I had to step outside my comfort zone to show this child that she can do anything. If she wants to do something, don't let the fear of being cold or the fear of whatever stop you from doing it. Have a go at it. It was a calculated risk. I knew that she wasn't going to be in danger. I knew that I wasn't going to be in danger. You had already been in, which we encouraged you to go in. And so we went in together, and it was just another thing to show the grandchildren you can overcome. Get in there. Go, I just kept saying to Maddie, keep moving, keep jumping up, keep jumping up and down. And it was a rush. It was fabulous when you got out of the water and as the blood rushed to everything, it was just amazing. I found it totally exhilarating. But then, of course, when I asked Amelia, did she want to go in with us, she said no. But then when we got out, she's like, Grandma, now I want to go. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, I have to go back in again. But we did it because – and again, it's stepping out of your comfort zone, but it just shows them that they can achieve anything and nothing needs to stop them in life. Just got to work out the risk in it and make sure it's a sensible risk.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. I mean, we were in upstate New York in a national park. There was ice still on lots of the lake, but there were parts where there wasn't, and that's where we went for a dip.
No, we went in where the ice was. It just wasn't. It
wasn't very thick.
It wasn't very thick, but we went in where the ice was, so it was still nice and cold.
Yeah. The girls still talk about that, to be honest. Like it's a memory that sticks out for them of our time in the States. So we were there 2.5 years, but that's one of the things I've heard them speak about a couple of times. So it's clearly a cool memory for them too.
Yeah, yeah,
that
it's
you
a cool
chose
memory
to do
for
that.
me because it was fun, crazy but fun.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember pushing our boundaries a little bit because you and I both don't love snakes. So I found a dead sea snake when we were away up at Nelson's Bay, and I didn't really want to touch it. But
with a group of young people.
We were with a group of young people, and I just knew that despite my fear of snakes, I should push through because you always give me such great examples of that. So I picked up this sea snake. Because the boys and I had been out for a wave, and I saw it as I walked back up the beach with my board. Picked up this snake. It was a black sea snake. It was only about a couple of feet long, but I was trying to think like how I could get the most impact, knowing that you weren't a huge fan of snakes at all. So I put it on top of
I had a huge phobia of them, not just fear.
Yeah,
a huge phobia.
At that stage, I don't know if it's still true, but you wouldn't even go near a lolly snake.
No.
Yeah, like a candy snake.
But I do
snake.
now. I eat them by the head now.
Yeah, eat them by the head. but at that stage, you were so scared of actual snakes that you wouldn't even go near a lolly snake.
No, and you children weren't allowed to have lolly snakes. No, weren't allowed to have them. I love a good lolly snake, especially those King Python-y things. So we put it. I don't know if the boys and I talked about it, but we put it on we were staying in a caravan, I think, weren't we? So I put it on top of, just as he came through the door, I put it right on the kitchen table, kind of curled it around with its little head sticking up. And then we waited. I can't remember how long we waited, but we got the reaction we're after. You took about a step in, looked at the snake, screamed like someone was trying to murder you, and ran out. And I don't know how far you ran, but a long way.
It was an amazing reaction. I deeply appreciated it. All the boys thought it was awesome. You were not super impressed, but you took it really well, to be honest, when the adrenaline came down.
Once I got my breath back.
Once you got your breath back. So, I mean, that's another one. Like we're saying, you were scared of lolly snakes. How did you work through that fear of snakes? Because your phobia is nowhere near as bad as what it was.
Well, I don't have a phobia anymore.
Okay.
I have now I have a healthy, respectful fear of snakes, but I don't have any phobia at all with them. But it was a ridiculous phobia I had, that's for sure. I couldn't even pick a book up if it had a photo of it or a picture of a snake in it. Wow. It was just ridiculous. But I got to the stage where I realised that I needed to live in total freedom. And again, that was connected with my faith, where I realised that God had said to me, I died so that you would live in total freedom, and that means total freedom. Freedom of everything, meaning fear or anything else. And so the two things that I felt that I needed to tackle was my fear of heights. It's one of the reasons why I climbed the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then my phobia of snakes. I wasn't keen on overcoming that phobia of snakes because I knew that it was going to be tricky, but I wanted to be free. I wanted to be totally free. And so I decided at that point I was a youth leader, and I had in my group, there were teenage boys and girls, but there was one particular boy, Luke, who loved snakes. And I thought, I need to go to the reptile park because we have a reptile park locally. As children, I didn't ever take you to that reptile park. If you remember, Auntie Kay took you to the reptile park because I couldn't face walking in there. And so I didn't want you to be deprived of not going to the reptile park. So she took you for me, or your children. But I knew I had to go and face a live snake somewhere. So the reptile park was obviously the only safe place to do it. Although on the property that we lived on at the time, there were snakes around, but thankfully I never actually came across one. I came across the skin, and that made me bolt inside the house, let alone the snake. And so I prayed about it and asked Luke, and he came with me, and he was keen to come with me. And we went, and there's like an arena where they have the snakes, and the handler talks about the snake, explains the snake, and then he brings it around so that everybody can touch it. And I'm like, just to stand there was like so hard for me to stand that. But Luke was like, you can do it, Auntie Sue, you can do it, Auntie Sue. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. And I really had to draw on my faith, to be honest, to be able to stand there and know that God was going to look after me, even though this snake came around. So he went around once, and I stood there and I didn't move. I didn't bolt. And Luke's going, see, you can do it. And then they came around again, didn't they? So everybody could pat it. And Luke goes, you need to touch it, Auntie Sue. You need to pat it. I'm like, no way. I've stood here. I've overcome it. That'll do me. And he goes, no, you need to touch it. And then you'll really know you're over your phobia. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do it. But anyhow, I did. I just quickly put my hand out and touched it, like for probably less than a second. But I touched it, and there was something about touching that snake. Obviously, it was as safe could be. Something about touching that snake broke that phobia. And I didn't ever have the phobia again. But I have a very healthy respect for fear of snakes, and I don't deliberately go out of my way to see them or to touch them. But I have touched them since, because we've had people come to our childcare centres that are reptile people, not reptile people, but people that handle reptiles, and to bring them and show the children. And I have actually held one once. Okay. It was only a little one.
Yeah.
But I just went, and that was like years later.
Yeah.
But I was so surprised at how free I was.
Wow.
Because I actually held it. I didn't hold it for long, of course, maybe 3-4 seconds, but I held the thing. So, yeah, but again, stepping out of that comfort zone. And if I hadn't have stepped up and deliberately stepped out of that comfort zone, I would still be tied down, and I wouldn't be living in the freedom that I live in now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to teach you children, because you would have been a teenager at the time. Or maybe you were 20 by then, when I think of the age that Luke and Michael were. But I wouldn't have been able to show you children how you can get free of fears.
It's interesting you say that, because, I probably was 20 or so by the time you worked through that with Luke at the reptile park.
Yeah, because Michael's 6 years younger than you, isn't he?
He's 6 years younger than me. So... But growing up, I remember being encouraged to really try to embrace our challenges and to work through them. And it's something that I really appreciate about being parented by you and Dad, that you would, where you could, like, obviously it took a long time to face that fear of snakes, but most challenges we were always encouraged to believe we could overcome things and have a crack. And if you fail, you fail, but like fail forward, I guess, like move forward and have a crack at it. Dad would always say, have a go, you mug.
Well.
Like he was yelling at referees on the sporting field, and then us, not yelling at us, but just that encouragement to have a crack. Jen, for you as a mum, what do you do to actually create that space, that environment where your kids can overcome challenges? And is that something you've thought about?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that Jared and I often talk about, because we want to. I think it's what you were saying, Susanna, giving them a lot of safety and a lot of security to feel comfortable to safely take risks and try new things and learn new skills. So to to learn something that they would have been really afraid of. And like even recently, Max, so he they often catch the bus from the school and they catch the bus to where I work. So I work at a hospital. They catch the bus across the street, and it's very safe to do so, but he was quite nervous about doing it. And I said, well, it is a big thing. Like, it's a big thing to do. And I need to say this right because I always get it wrong. It's really funny, but there's I often teach people how to like change management in my job, and we talk about like all the different phases of changing and learning something new. So when something is changing, and the words are funny. So you go from like being really unconsciously incompetent at something. So Max wasn't even aware of how to ride the bus. He had never thought about it. It had never entered his consciousness that he needed to do that. So he didn't know how. He was incompetent. And then when I suggested that, why don't we try that, he was very consciously incompetent of doing it. So he didn't know how to do it. And that cycle of going, oh, but I'm very aware that I can't do this. And he was freaking out. So I said to him, like, oh, like, but you're always like that when you're learning something new. That's just the stage. Like you have no idea about it. But then when you're aware of it, you obviously see what you can't do. It's like learning to ride a bike, like when you start to wobble and then you go to being consciously competent. So you try it. So like when we were riding the bus, I said, okay, well, it would be really scary of me to ask you to just get on a bus and figure it out because you're 8. Like, that's not really a good mom move. But we found some parents who had older kids who did the exact same thing. So I said, okay, well, like, connect with them after school, do it together, watch the stops, watch the button that you push. You only had to push one button, like, made it really easy. But he has a little watch on his like little phone, and he called me, and he was that consciously becoming very competent. So he was like, I was sitting on the edge of my seat, Mom. I was waiting on that button. Like, I was waiting to see my stop because I needed to push the button. I needed to, Mom. Like, so he's so focused and so intently there. And but then that next kind of space, and I said to him, I'm like, it'll be easy. Like, it'll be something that you teach Izzy to do. Like, it'll be really easy for you. Is that really just unconsciously competent? Like, where you're just sitting there reading your book and then he pushes the button and he's like, oh yeah, I'm there. And I said to him, I'm like, it's really good to be really scared to start with because that's your body's way of keeping you safe. Like, that's your body's way of like triggering you that this is different and it's not okay. Like, so that's a good thing. Like, it's good to be afraid initially, but let's make sure you've got all the things that you know that you're going to learn how to do this safely. And I think it's one of those things too, like even that example, he did it for a couple of months. And now he loves, like you can see him, he'll get off the bus and he knows where he's coming to. He has like a little bit of a swagger that he's one of the little kids that can do it. But I thought that was one of the things for him, like with lots of things with them that I just went, like I remember that cycle because it's a cycle for me. Like I teach it to adults all the time about learning new skills and go, okay, well like as soon as if it's different, it's going to shake you a little bit. You're going to be really like consciously knowing that you can't do that. So I thought that's a really, like for me, I think I always apply that with the kids as well, like just the little stuff and go, okay, well, yeah, like you feel like that now, but you won't feel like that in 6 months, and kind of we had that conversation with them. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's been one of those things that's
really cool.
Has been real good.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Jen, that parents understand helping their children to step out of their comfort zone. You don't push them out.
No.
And you don't bully them out. Because they are afraid, and I agree with you, Jenny, it's good that they're afraid. It's a natural thing. It's something that's been given to us to help us keep ourselves safe. And when they understand that, and then it's a matter of the parent doing like you did, walking them through the whole process so they can overcome it. But you still have to wait till they're ready to do it. You can't force children, because then they're not coming out of their comfort zone. They're just going further into fear, and they're being devalued. They know they're being devalued. And so two things are happening for them now. Not only are they frightened, but they're feeling totally devalued, and they don't know if they can trust you as a parent because you're making them do something that they are convinced is going to be really dangerous for them. So it's too hard for them to learn how to do that well, because they've got so many emotions happening at once. And sometimes, like, it seems that process ended up not being too drawn out or hard in the end for you and Max to be able to walk through, because you had the older children to take him. But sometimes it might mean that you will encourage a child to do something about stepping out of their comfort zone, and it might take a good 12 months till they get to that point where they can do it. But it's okay. That's okay. They will eventually. But definitely you stepping outside of your comfort zone does encourage them and builds that platform for them.
I was just going to say, I think when you were talking about climbing the bridge, and you said, most people wouldn't think that's scary because you're hooked on, like you've got an anchor point there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other things I'm just thinking about, like when we teach this, it's a subject, I'm not an expert at it, but we talk about, like, when you're asking someone to change something, young, old, across the board, it's just uncomfortable. So I always talk about giving something to anchor people. So giving them an anchor point that can help them feel stable and help them feel steady. And I think, like, when I was doing that with Max, I was like, his anchor point to help him speed it up was, if I had have asked him to just jump on the bus and figure it out, he would have been petrified. Much. That's way too much for him. But going, okay, well, actually, your anchor point at the moment is there's an older kid.
Yes.
He's going to walk you across.
Yeah.
He's going to call me as soon as you get there, and I'll come over and get you. And then the next anchor point was, once those kids, it'd been enough time and he knew it, and I knew that he knew how to do it, was you got your phone. We've got you a watch that has a phone in it, so you can call me. Like, if anything happens that you don't feel comfortable, you know that you can call me. Most kids your age do not have that. So, but this is why. So he was like, oh, so you could tell he was a little bit nervous, but he went, okay, yeah, I can call you. And he called me a few times, that first bus trip. He's like, just so you know, we're pulling out. Just so you know, like, we passed, whatever landmark. And he was like, we're stopping. I'm about to push the button. Wait. So, but it was that thing where he knew that he had a point of safety when he was scared.
He still felt connected to you.
Yeah, and he felt safe. And then after a while, he'd just show up at my office, and he was like, oh, we're good. Like, sometimes he'll go, I made it. I'm really good at this now. Thanks.
That's fantastic, though. Like, you've got to that end result over time.
Yeah, and
one stage at a time too.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for them too, because he does feel like he's pretty grown up.
Yeah,
It's like it's a skill that he has that he can do. And I know that my sister-in-law, who lives in Finland, they often talk about, like, giving their kids autonomy and teaching them skills and helping them to kind of get, navigate places, like take public transport or get places is a big deal. Like, letting them have that autonomy, because it gives them that confidence and problem solving in a really safe environment when they're younger. And I thought that's actually the more little things that they learn to do and they have confidence in themselves that they can do. The bigger things they feel, like, it takes more to push them out of their comfort zone. Their comfort zone expands.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Very cool. So from today, obviously it's a big deal. Like, you push yourself with snakes, you've pushed yourself with heights. How would you encourage somebody that maybe is at the start of that journey, where they're thinking about actually trying to push themselves in an area that they might find really challenging now? They're just at the start of that journey.
Well, I think you have to do the same sort of thing that Jenny did with Max is what I did with myself. I didn't just all of a sudden decide I wanted to overcome the phobia of snakes. I prepared myself for it. And Luke was my anchor point. My faith was my anchor point. So I had my anchor points. Same with the heights, overcoming the fear of heights. I prepared for that. Actually, even before we even went on the Harbour Bridge, I, again, as a youth leader, on a camp that we had, some of the kids were going abseiling, and I'm like, I've got to do this. And I knew that I was in an environment where the kids would cheer me on because they loved it because they all knew me well enough to know. In fact, they were there when you put that snake there. Luke was there when you put the snake there. So he knew my phobia. And so that's another reason why he loved cheering me on with the snake. But they knew I was frightened of the heights. And they loved to cheer me on, which also I think just connected me more that when I was coming alongside them and helping them with their problems of being a teenager, it connected us a lot more. And so you've got to plan. You've got to work out, okay, what do I want to overcome? What's holding me back?
Yeah.
What's stopping me from living in the freedom I am born to live in? And then come up with a plan of action. Ask people to come in and help you, come in and cheer you on. Jenny was Max's cheerleader. Luke was my cheerleader with the snake. Mind you, your dad was and you kids were too. I just didn't want any of you to be there. I only wanted Luke so that I could concentrate. And again, doing the abseiling and also doing the climbing bridge. I had your dad cheering me on with the bridge and the young people cheering me on with the abseiling. Put people around you, and if you can't find people that will come, if you haven't got people around you that will come around and cheer you on, then go and find people, find someone who will cheer you on. And the other really important thing is don't be frightened of failure. Failure is not something to be fearful of. Failure is something to value.
Beautiful.
And I knew that if I failed, that was okay. I was just going to have another go. And I knew the potential was there, very, very real potential was there for me to fail both times. But I think a lot of it, like even with Max, there would have been a whole part of failure in his fear. What if I can't do it? So failure will hold us back. Don't worry about failure. See failure as your friend, not as your enemy. All it's going to do is, even if you have a go and you fail, there will be something you have learnt in that time of you having a go. It's just you need to go a bit further next time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So see failure as your friend because it's just a tool that's going to help you overcome it even more so. Yeah.
Yeah, I love there's so many good things you said just then, and the one that resonates most for me is when you were talking about your vulnerability actually then allowed those young people to be vulnerable with you about different things, but that there was that you showed them that you were prepared to be vulnerable with them in a space that scared you.
Yeah.
And so it gave them the space of the same thing. And I definitely appreciate that growing up.
I was actually prepared to be a fool in front of them too.
Yeah, wow.
Because I did look a bit like a fool because I was scared witless and I didn't need to be that scared, but I was like a little child. I was really petrified. So I was willing to look like a fool. Don't be worried about looking foolish because I wasn't a fool. I was actually being responsible. But I could look foolish doing it. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You overcome that because you win in the end when you overcome whatever it is that's holding you back.
Yep. No, thank you for that. It's powerful. So what have you taken out today, Jen?
Oh, I just love listening to all the stories. I feel like, Susanna, you're like a hero. Like all that, I've never abseiled. And
I'll take you.
Maybe that's out of my comfort zone thing for like next year.
Next year, when I turn 70, our youngest son's taking me skydiving.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm petrified.
Oh, I totally want to come.
But I'm going.
That's incredible.
I know. So as long as I don't have a heart attack on the way down, but I figure if I do, that's okay. I'm enjoying myself on the way down.
You're crazy brave.
Yeah. It's cool though. It is a phobia, a fear still, challenge still, but you're going to have a crack.
Sorry, Jen.
Yeah, I'm going to go to that one. It'll be awesome.
So good. Yeah, you guys are my heroes, I think. Like, you guys are always doing crazy new things. Well, thank you so much for the conversation today. It's been really lovely listening to all the stories and wisdom that you always bring, Susanna. And I guess next week we are going to talk about maintaining relationships when seasons change around us. And there's a lot of ways to connect. So you can look on Instagram at Enjoy Parenting AU and on Facebook at Enjoy Your Parenting. But thanks for joining us in our conversation today. And remember to enjoy your parenting roller coaster ride.